Chapter 1563. A New Sword Spirit. Su Yun was startled. He felt that he could not think straight. In the air, Ling Qingyu's weak voice sounded out again. She seemed to be extremely shocked, and her voice was trembling. I never thought that the will, just now, was not the only will of the evil sword's main body. I never thought that the evil sword's main body would actually give birth to such a perfect will like you. Am I really going to be replaced? Replaced? These two words were like steel needles, fiercely piercing into Su Yun's heart. He anxiously asked, Qingyu, what exactly is going on? What replacement? What exactly is it? People are always so stupid and ignorant. Didn't I say it just now? I am the sword spirit of the evil sword. The white figure laughed again. The will you saw just now is actually the sword spirit of the evil sword. But it is only an incomplete broken will. It is not yet formed. It is not considered much inside this evil sword after the world was destroyed. It accumulated countless consciousness after a long period of time. These consciousnesses have formed their own will, hundreds and thousands, countless. But almost all of them are broken, uneven. Only I am different. I am the only one that has not been disturbed by the strange consciousness. My consciousness is extremely unified. I devour the other broken wills everywhere to strengthen myself. I originally thought that the internal will have been completely devoured. I did not expect to discover the aura of another will. So I came over to take a look, but I did not expect that a person would actually appear here. How interesting. You must have spent quite a bit of effort to come here, right? The white shadow laughed. The white shadow could actually devour other wills. And from its words, it should have already completed all of its consciousness and was about to take shape. But Su Yun also thought of an extremely terrifying possibility. He secretly clenched his teeth and said to the white shadow, Now, are you going to devour the evil sword's former sword spirit? I'm not interested in that. The white shadow laughed. That sword spirit doesn't have much power left. It's extremely weak and is about to die. It doesn't matter if I swallow it or not. Furthermore, compared to this sword spirit, what I should do now is to kill the spirit of the myriad realms, and let the evil sword eat the spirit of the myriad realms. And in that way, I can obtain the replenishment of the spirit of the myriad realms, and become even stronger, until I am immortal. Isn't that more meaningful? The white shadow suddenly laughed out loud. When Su Yun heard this, his heart jumped, and he broke out in cold sweat. So the world destroyer ominous sword was created by the ominous sword will to strengthen itself? This white figure actually had such a plan, and it said that Qingyu was about to die? What was going on? Qingyu, what was going on? What did it mean? What state are you in right now? He asked anxiously. But in the void, Ling Qingyu's voice did not resound again. Qingyu, Qingyu, Su Yun roared. From the looks of it, the sword spirit has exhausted its strength. It doesn't even have the ability to speak now. Is it just waiting for death? The white figure laughed and walked towards Su Yun. Human, my memories contain the memories of all living beings killed by the sword. I understand all of this, and I understand all of this. You should accept your fate and know who is the ruler of this world. Don't resist anymore. The sword spirit has dried up, and I've already reached large success. The time is ripe, and this place can no longer trap me. It's time to feast and absorb the myriad worlds. The white shadow became more and more excited. But in the next second, the terrifying death sword suddenly slashed towards it. The white shadow's body did not move, allowing the sword to slash at it. But just as the sword edge was about to touch it, a tyrannical fierce chi spewed out from its body, blocking the sword, making it difficult for it to advance any further. Even though Su Yun's ancestral power was the densest and most ferocious in the myriad worlds, facing this fierce chi, it was extremely powerless. But this was not Su Yun's killing technique. He suddenly raised his head, and the dissipated eyes of Samsara once again activated. At the same time, the great yin-yang technique, true devil god's pupil, and other incomparably powerful mental techniques were also activated, attacking the white shadow. The white shadow's body trembled a few times and retreated half a step, as though it was not prepared for Su Yun's sneak attack. But With just Su Yun's strength, how could he fight against the consciousness of billions of living beings in a myriad worlds? Facing such a sneak attack, it only retreated half a step and did not show any other signs of distress. Is that all? Is that all you can do? You want to kill me? With just your strength alone, I'm afraid you won't be able to do it. The white shadow raised its head and looked at Su Yun. On the snow-white figure, 2 holes suddenly appeared. They were 2 holes that looked like eyes. White light rushed out from the holes, straight toward Su Yun. Their eyes met. Su Yun's entire body trembled. But at the same time, the white shadow's body also started to tremble slightly. Eyes of Samsara? The white shadow revealed a surprised expression. Tear everything apart. Su Yun roared, his eyes suddenly releasing a burst of light. The power of Samsara was activated. The white shadow's body rapidly shrank, its mouth releasing a mournful cry. The power of Samsara had actually purified a lot of the consciousness energy in its body, allowing them to feel proud and free. The attack on the white shadow was extremely strong. Its body could not help but retreat, and the fierce chi also rushed toward Su Yun, especially toward his eyes. The fierce chi was like acid, wanting to attack Su Yun. Su Yun had no choice but to stop the activation of the eyes of Samsara. But just at this time, the white shadow seemed to have seized the opportunity and attacked Su Yun. The entire world of the evil sword started to distort. Countless strange black holes were produced in the world, but the black holes did not produce any suction force. On the contrary, they released countless terrifying fierce chi in the blink of an eye. The intensity of the fierce chi was actually 100 times stronger than before. Su Yun immediately felt his entire body turn cold, his entire body trembling, and the ancestor's power was also being devoured crazily. In this situation, if the ancestor's subordinates were to touch the fierce chi, they would definitely die on the spot. Their souls would not exist, and the ancestor would not be able to exist for long. Su Yun was the same. There's no way to retreat. Su Yun understood. The white shadows had already planned to wipe him out. If he did not make a move, he would not have a chance. Su Yun took a deep breath, growled, and rushed forward, withstanding the terrifying fierce chi. He advanced towards the white shadow. The eyes of Samsara opened, staring straight at the white shadow, allowing the fierce chi to corrode him. He did not close it again. For Qinger, for Qianmei, for Xianli, for Luluo, for Xiao Chua, for Muyu, for Octagon Aniseed, for the Sect Master, for the Sword Elder, for the Sword Ancestor, for Qingyu, for the sake of the people he cared about. This time, he had to destroy this will. Otherwise, everything would end, and the mistakes of his previous life would repeat themselves. The heavens would not give him a third chance. He roared at the top of his lungs, the power of reincarnation surging in his eyes, crazily eroding the white shadow. The white shadow trembled violently, releasing one painful roar after another, its body continuously retreating, but the speed at which it retreated was not fast. On the other hand, Su Yun was trying his best to activate the eyes of Samsara. The ancestor's power and body were being consumed crazily by the fierce chi. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to the boundary point, and his strength was about to be exhausted. Human, although you are consuming my willpower, your willpower is stronger than the willpower that you are eliminating. You are not my match, and sooner or later, you will die under my power, and once you die, as long as I devour your willpower, I will become even stronger than I am now. Therefore, I do not feel disgusted by your actions. On the contrary, your actions will only hasten your death. The white shadows will release waves of low laughter, as though it was mocking Su Yun. Is that so? Su Yun suddenly said, and then his body disappeared. The will of the white shadow was startled. But in the next second, it discovered that the evil sword's body had actually distorted, and then turned into a field of white. Countless godlike existences stood in front of it, all of them glaring at it. Is this an illusion technique? The will of the white shadow frowned. That's right. Amongst the gods, a figure walked out. It was Su Yun. Your illusion technique is actually effective against me? The will of the White Shadow was shocked. I already have the strength of the peak ancestor, and you are just a spirit body, the new will of the evil sword, and the foundation of your formation is the will of the 10,000 spirits. But among the will of the 10,000 spirits, no one could be stronger than me. Even if you fuse them together, you are still not my match. I can easily drag you into the illusion, Su Yun said in a deep voice. But I've already sensed that this is just an illusion. You cannot trap me here forever. Even if I am here, what can you do to me? The will of the White Shadow was not afraid at all. Who told you that I can't do anything to you? Su Yun's face suddenly congealed. The countless of gods all opened their eyes wide, staring at the will of the White Shadow, and their eyes were actually the eyes of Samsara. The will of the White Shadow let out a scream of fear and pain. How was this possible? According to the memories that it had absorbed, the will of the White Shadow knew that there was only one pair of eyes of Samsara in this world, and it was refined from the eyes of the reincarnation god ancestor by an ancient family in the Great Desolate Era. There was only one pair of eyes, and it was passed down from generation to generation in the family. Even if Su Yun obtained the eyes of Samsara, he would only have one pair. Could it be that this person could even create the pain brought about by the eyes of Samsara? The will of the White Shadow roared, and its body continued to shrink. However, it did not remain indifferent, and instead used a thunderous voice to roar. Following that, the entire illusion started to tremble. Outside the illusion, Su Yun was still activating the Yin-Yang Wanxiang spell, but he discovered that the inner world of the evil sword seemed to be experiencing a magnitude 12 earthquake and was trembling crazily. What was going on? He frowned, feeling that something was wrong. Just then, a burst of energy suddenly struck Su Yun's body. The energy was extremely strange, as though it came from outside the evil sword world. Su Yun's body moved slightly. He felt that his entire body was filled with energy, and his condition had recovered to its peak. Qingyu. Su Yun was startled. But after that, he could no longer feel Ling Qingyu's aura, and his heart couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. His mind was in a mess. What was going on? How was Qingyu now? However, without waiting for him to think further, a terrifying pressure suddenly rushed towards him, causing Su Yun's body to be directly knocked out. The ominous sword world suddenly exploded, causing Su Yun to be sent flying, landing outside the sword eye. He flipped over and stared at the sword eye, only to see that the will of the White Shadow was standing at the sword eye. At the same time, the entire sword started to move. The sword sheath's world trembled crazily, and a large amount of space was torn apart. Seeing that, blood flowed out of Su Yun's eyes. Only when the sword spirit was completely suppressed would the evil sword be able to break through the sword sheath. Chapter 1564. Crash. Cold wind spewed out from the sword eye of the evil sword. It was the accumulated resentment of the souls that had died under the evil sword. With a move of the evil sword, its aura was released, instantly passing through the boundary outline and spreading throughout the myriad realms. Even the myriad realms, including the immortal realm, were instantly frozen. The temperature dropped rapidly. The vegetation immediately withered. The weak life forms were all frozen. The heaven and earth turned pale white. The life force disappeared, and the cold gradually rose. In less than 100 breaths of time, the entire myriad realms was already in the scene of winter. However, the chill did not stop. It was getting more and more intense, and the situation was getting more and more terrifying. The sword sheath was located in the immortal realm, and currently, the immortal realm was the most severely affected by the evil sword. When Ling Qingyu was no longer able to suppress the evil sword's main body, the evil sword's power began to overflow 100 times or 1,000 times. The entire immortal realm was instantly frozen, and the immortals who had yet to leave the immortal realm turned into ice in an instant. The existences at the peak of the spirit god realm and above were still able to resist the cold, but the cold continued to increase, and even they were gradually unable to resist it. They had no choice but to take advantage of the fact that the ice had not completely frozen them, and quickly left. They did not have the time to take away their disciples, family, friends, or even their belongings, because if they were slightly slower, even the experts of the returning ruins would have to stay in this dusty world forever. Compared to the immortal realm, the other realms were not having a good time either, especially the realm with the lowest strength like the Sky Martial realm. The people who live in this realm were all people who had just touched the spirit cultivation, and most of them were ordinary commoners. The sudden cold made it hard for them to accept, and even the blazing sun floating above their heads dimmed in a split second. What followed was countless landslides, earthquakes, tsunamis, and natural disasters. In the blink of an eye, countless realms welcomed the end of the world and turned into hell on earth. Su Yun spat out the blood in his mouth. The eyes of Samsara stared straight at the white while standing at the sword eye. It looked at Su Yun quietly, then raised its hand, and the incomparably large evil sword finally moved. It rose slowly, and the huge sword edge, whose top could not be seen, directly tore through the world of the sword sheath and crashed into the vast and boundless celestial world. This huge sword edge was like a divine dragon that could break the sky. Once it appeared, it directly split the celestial world. The boundless sword intent swept through the entire immortal world like a destructive storm. Everything in its path was reduced to ashes. Whether it was the powerful spirit beasts, the thick cloud mountains, or the powerful immortals, no one could resist this terrifying sword intent. At the gate of the immortal realm. Quick, hurry up and leave the immortal realm. A white-haired old man shouted. He was the immortal. The last time Su Yin went to the peak of the immortal realm to ask him about the evil sword, he had vaguely felt that something was wrong. He knew that Su Yin had the evil sword in his hands, and asking about it meant that something had happened to the evil sword. So he had informed his friends and relatives early in the morning to quickly leave the immortal realm. Who would have thought that this matter would spread like wildfire, and the power on Su Yun's side would also spread the news that the evil sword might not be able to be controlled, but most of the immortals were unwilling to believe it. If the evil sword lost control, then the myriad realms would be destroyed, and the realm outline would be destroyed. Although the myriad realms were big, to the evil sword, it was just a single strike. What if the news was fake? Wouldn't it be a waste of effort? However, there was always a portion of people who were willing to believe it. Especially with this change, there were more and more people who believed it. The supreme expert had the ability to directly tear open space and pass through the realm, but ordinary immortals could not do it, and it was impossible for the immortal to send away all of his close friends and disciples. Helpless, he could only bring these people to the gate of the immortal realm. Unexpectedly, the gate of the immortal realm was surrounded by countless immortals. They crowded towards the gate of the immortal realm. The scene was extremely chaotic and noisy. With death approaching, the fear in people's hearts surged out. They became anxious and uneasy, and their tempers naturally became irritable. With so many people squeezed together, there were many conflicts, and there were even many people who fought. Those with high cultivation were extremely tyrannical. They could just directly cut the queue. Those with weak strength dared not say anything and could only obediently wait. The scene was so chaotic. The immortals did not follow the order, greatly reducing the speed of passing through the gate of the immortal realm. The efficiency was not good, and only more people would not be able to leave the immortal realm. All of you stop. Finally, the immortal master could not stand it anymore and roared loudly. He was a fake primogenitor with a small world inside his body. With this roar, the small world revolved, and the primogenitor's aura was released, shocking the entire scene. Even the ascended gods were frozen by this roar. Everyone looked at the old man in unison. Some of them did not know him, but there were still many who knew him and knew his name. Immortal Master. It's Master Immortal Master. Master Immortal Master is here. We are saved. People shouted in joy and cupped their fists. Some even kowtowed to the Immortal Master. They were extremely happy, as if they had seen their savior. Some people thought that the Immortal Master had the power of a primogenitor and could definitely solve the current predicament. However, this was not the case. He was only a fake primogenitor. Right now, Many people did not even know what was going on in the immortal realm. If they knew that this was a sign that the ominous sword was about to attack, they might not be so happy. Because in front of the ominous sword, the primogenitor was like an ant in front of a giant. Master, immortal master, what happened in the immortal realm? Why did it become so cold? Did some almighty figure make things difficult for them? Someone asked loudly. Pairs of eyes looked at the immortal master, waiting for his answer. However, the immortal master shook his head helplessly. Then he took out a magic treasure from his space bag and shouted at the few ascendant gods who had just arrived, I need the help of 20 great immortals to tear open the gate of the immortal realm for me, so that more immortals can leave the immortal realm quickly. Who is willing to step forward? The ascended god realm powerhouses looked at each other and finally stood up one by one. The immortal master took out his magic treasure, and the great immortals immediately used their power to support it. The magic treasure turned into hooks and pulled the two sides of the gate of the immortal realm. They began to tear it apart. The aura of space surged, and the gate of the immortal realm immediately swayed left and right. In the end, it was forcibly pulled back dozens of meters, which was several times larger than before. The gate of the immortal realm opened, and immortals rushed in like a tide. Seeing this, the immortal master heaved a sigh of relief. Then he shouted at his disciples and close friends, Go quickly, find a way to go to the true demon realm. Seeing this, the people at the peak of the immortal realm immediately ran. One of the great immortals still did not understand the situation and asked the immortal master, Immortal master, what happened? The immortal realm. What happened to the immortal realm? What happened to the immortal realm? The immortal realm is finished. Not only the immortal realm, but also the myriad realms. The immortal master shook his head and rushed toward the gate of the immortal realm. However, at this moment, a terrifying sword intent swept over from afar. It was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The immortals who were rushing toward the gate of the immortal realm did not even have time to react before they were engulfed by the sword intent. Their bodies and souls were torn into particles, and they died immediately. The power of nirvanic and withering swept over, and the temperature dropped rapidly. It was several times stronger than before. Even the immortal master's body began to form layers of frost. What? What is that? The people who had yet to escape looked at this scene in horror and were all dumbfounded. In the distant sky, a sky-piercing sword shadow appeared. The sword intent was overflowing and the blade was sharp. The scene was incomparably grand and extremely terrifying. The ominous sword. It really appeared. The immortal master widened his eyes and looked at this scene in disbelief. Quick, run! The immortals panicked. At this moment, everyone was desperately squeezing toward the immortal gate. Even though the immortal gate had been opened, it was still extremely crowded. It was difficult for an expert to pass through the immortal gate. He even cast a spell and attacked the crowded immortal gate. Hey, what are you doing? What? We're about to die. What else can we do? The immortal did not care about what the people around him thought and rushed toward the immortal gate. However, before he could get close, he was hit by a spell and died instantly. His soul was shattered and his body fell from the sky. The crowd looked and saw that it was the immortal master who attacked. The elder immortal looked at the immortals expressionlessly and said, The ominous sword is going to destroy the world. Everyone will not be able to escape death. Even if we leave through this door, between you and me, it will only be a matter of who dies first and who dies later. I will stay here and buy time for you. If you want to leave, then leave obediently and abide by the rules. If anyone dares to act tyrannically and break the order, I will send you away before I die. The immortal master's words immediately shocked the crowd. However, his words also shocked those who did not know what was going on. Ominous sword? Could it be that all of this was brought about by the ominous sword? Could it be that the rumor was true? Whoosh! The sword will rushed over, bringing with it the power to destroy everything as it charged over. The immortal master did not waste any more words. He suddenly turned around and raised both his hands. A golden mirror appeared between his palms and spread out with terrifying momentum. The sword will instantly collided with the mirror, but was blocked by the mirror. The immortal master's arms trembled violently. The moment the sword intent hit the mirror, he opened his mouth and spat out blood. After a few breaths, cracks appeared on the mirror. The small world in his body operated crazily, and the ancestral aura was like burning straws. He knew that he could not hold on for long. He could have just left, but he gave up because there were still many people who did not leave in time. The immortal master turned his head with all his might and looked at the people from the immortal gate. There were still a few proud disciples standing there. They refused to leave for a long time and looked at their master with tears in their eyes. "Go!" The immortal master shouted weakly. They knelt down and kowtowed to the immortal master a few times. Then, they turned around and left with difficulty. These disciples were not stupid. They knew that they were helpless against the ominous sword. They understood the immortal master better. Once he decided to stay, he would not change his mind. Since he chose to stay, no one could make him leave. The immortal master's arms trembled even more, and the cracks on the mirror became bigger and bigger. At the immortal gate, there were still tens of thousands of immortals who did not leave in time. The immortal gate was only so big, and transporting people took time. At this moment, 2 ascended God realm immortals also flew over. They pressed their hands on the immortal master's shoulders and transferred what little power they had left to him. The immortal master felt the power coming from his left and right. He panted heavily and looked at the 2 of them. Then he smiled bitterly. "Are you 2 staying as well? There's no point. Sir has chosen to stay. Why should we leave?" The 2 of them said in unison. "I'm different from you too." The immortal master's smile became even more bitter. His eyes fell into deep reminiscence. "I have already escaped once." As soon as the voice fell, the huge sword shadow once again erupted with a circle of terrifying sword intent. This sword intent directly shook the void, shattered the outline of the world, and rushed towards the next world. The other forces, like stormy waves that could destroy everything, swept over here. Compared to this new sword intent, the difference between the previous sword intent and this new one was like the difference between a baby and a giant. It was tens of thousands of times stronger. Even the space seemed to be destroyed, and the immortal world was completely destroyed. The immortal chi was not even worth mentioning in front of it. The primogenitor's aura was like a paper window that would break upon touch. Seeing this, the immortal master smiled. There was no bitterness in his smile, but more helplessness. He gently closed his eyes and gave up resisting. He knew that he was going to sleep together with the entire immortal world. The ominous sword was finally going to show its edge to the myriad of worlds. Chapter 1565. In front of the sword eye of the evil sword, Su Yun held onto the death sword in his hand tightly and walked toward the sword eye step by step. The will of the white main body stood in front of the sword with his arms crossed over his chest. He looked at the man in front of him with a playful expression and chuckled. Everything has already begun. With that said, he opened his arms, faced the sky, and suddenly roared. Immediately after, countless streams of light appeared in the sky. Like a torrent, they surged towards his body. His body, which had shrunk drastically after being purified by the eye of reincarnation, actually increased at an astonishing speed under the support of these streams of light. In the blink of an eye, he had become nearly 2 meters tall. Su Yun's face twisted. He took a step forward and rushed towards the evil sword's new will without caring about anything else. He could feel that those streams of light were the countless living beings of the immortal world. They had died under the evil sword, and all of them had been absorbed by the will of the evil sword, becoming nourishment for him to increase his own strength. The immortal world was the strongest realm in the myriad realms. In this huge realm, there were countless experts with extraordinary abilities. Their soul power was incomparable. At this moment, the will of the evil sword was unprecedentedly strong. But Su Yun had no way out. The immortal world was already dead, and next would be the spirit realm, ultimate martial world, Wanhua realm, evil realm, sky martial continent, underworld. True, devil realm. He slashed forward with his sword. But the will of the main body did not fluctuate in the slightest. The will raised its hand, and a circle of lines appeared on its palm. It was the aura of the evil sword. The evil sword had broken free from its restraints, and he was already able to easily control the chi, which instantly exploded from his palm, transforming into billions of black light beams that pierced toward Su Yun. Bang! A black light exploded from the death sword. Circles of ferocious ancestral power surged out. The eye of reincarnation activated. Blood flowed out from his eyes. Su Yun did not hold back and smashed forward. The death light turned into a shield, blocking the fierce chi. But the fierce chi was extremely terrifying. It actually shattered the shield formed by the death light. Su Yun's body was pierced through by a large number of eyeball-sized eyes. Most likely his small world was also damaged, and he was severely injured. However, he did not stop because of that. Under his control, the death sword fiercely slashed towards the white figure. The white shadow had no choice but to dodge, but he did not want to continue playing with Su Yun. As long as he devoured Su Yun's will, he believed that his will would reach a new height, and at the same time, it would be easy for him to devour the will of all living beings in the myriad realms. The sword eyes spewed out a dense and terrifying fierce chi. As though they were attracted by the will of the white shadow, they surged out like a tide. They did not attack Su Yun as their target, but directly poured out, pervading the already dead immortal world. Su Yun was struck by the dense, evil chi to the point that it was difficult for him to get close to the sword eye. At the moment, the sword eye was like a gigantic fountain. The evil chi was like spring water. His condition was already extremely bad, and it was even more difficult to get close. The entire immortal dimension had already been invaded by ferocious energy. The world was covered in darkness, and not the slightest bit of hope or life could be seen. Only Su Yun's eyes seemed to still maintain their luster. The eyes of reincarnation did not close. The white shadow suddenly leaped, his body twisted, and within the vast fierce chi, it transformed into a gigantic mouth and rushed towards Su Yun. Su Yun raised his head and looked at the falling white mouth. In that instant, he felt as though his eyes were blinded by a large hand. His blood vessels were blocked by a stone. His soul was shackled, and his strength was sealed. He was completely suppressed. Absolute power. The surrounding fierce chi suddenly solidified, completely trapping his body. He was unable to move through the fierce chi, unable to move, and even breathing became difficult. This was the will of the strongest power in the myriad realms. The suppression from the strongest will, no one could contend against him head-on. In the end, fate was not something that a person could control. The God in your minds is me. The heaven and earth you speak of is also me. The supreme Tao you believe in is also me. I am your ruler. I created this heaven and earth, bestowed upon you the myriad heavens and earth, allowing you to survive in this heaven and earth. I gave you your lives. Now, I want to take your lives back. How dare you resist? That's right. I will absorb you and imprint you into the center of my mind. All of this is just a beginning and an end. The white shadow's voice came from the big mouth. There was a hint of seriousness, a hint of playfulness, a hint of ridicule, and also a hint of mockery. But to Su Yun, it was so ear-piercing. He suddenly raised his head. The pupil in the eye of samsara suddenly shattered. The skin on his body also cracked open. Blood seeped out from the cracked skin, like magma melting ice, completely dispersing the fierce chi that imprisoned him. Even if the myriad realms were created by you, the living beings of the myriad realms should not be controlled by you. Everyone is free and has the right to live in this world. He was like a peerless god as he stood in the middle of the fierce chi, looking down at the strongest will that had fallen down. An inviolable majesty and killing intent surged out like a tide from the broken eye of samsara. An incomparable samsara power erupted, shooting straight towards the strongest will, continuously purifying his consciousness. The fierce chi in the entire immortal world seemed to have been stirred up by Su Yun's sudden change. The strongest will also sense that something was wrong with Su Yun, but at this critical juncture, he did not stop. Even if Su Yun released the power of the Eye of Samsara, so what? He had just absorbed the will of all the experts in the immortal world. The current him was unprecedentedly powerful, and with just the Eye of Samsara, it was impossible to destroy him in such a short period of time. But right at that moment, a terrifying blood intent suddenly surged around Su Yun's body. The death sword broke inch by inch, turning into dregs and fusing into his blood. This peerless sword that was once able to contend against the fierce sword and suppress, it had actually broken itself today and fused into its master. At the same time, the temperature on Su Yun's body suddenly rose sharply. His cracked skin actually ignited with terrifying flames. The flames were like armor, pervading his entire body. When the big mouth fell down and wrapped around Su Yun, in just a few breaths of time, the white shadow's body was immediately burned by the flames. Its entire body returned to its original state and shot out. It released a miserable scream, and only after a long while did it recover, and looked at Su Yun in disbelief. Soul power? Willpower? Did you ignite your soul and will? The white shadows will sense Su Yun's abnormality and cried out involuntarily. Humans have their own nature, and swords have their own spirits. Since the master is going to die, the sword will follow the master. Su Yun raised his right hand and looked at the flames on his right hand. It automatically condensed into a slender fire sword. The shape of the sword was exactly the same as the broken death sword. He couldn't help but think back to the scene of the devil ancestor fighting against the fierce sword. He would rather die than bow. He didn't expect that today it would be his turn. And when he burned his own soul and will to make his last stand, what he didn't expect was that the death sword did not hesitate to destroy its own sword body, releasing its sword spirit and fusing with Su Yun's body, becoming one with him. In my opinion, you are stronger than the fierce sword. He laughed softly, but at this moment, he had an unprecedented confidence. He leaped up, like a peerless god of war, holding the terrifying sword. He rushed towards the fierce sword's will. The flames on his body were like a huge wave, spreading out in all directions. This was the cultivation technique used by the devil ancestor. Back then, when he was fighting against the fierce sword, he had also burned his own soul and will, releasing all of his potential. At that moment, Su Yun's cultivation was no longer at the ancestor realm. He had finally stepped into the ancestor realm and reached an unprecedented level. If you plan to control all of these spirits in your hands, then I can only tell you, you can't control me. Su Yun held onto the fire sword formed from the death sword's sword spirit, and with the power to break the heavens, in the darkness, a dazzling fiery light streaked across. The fierce swords will wanted to use its fierce chi to block, but he was shocked to discover that the omnipotent fierce chi was actually broken by Su Yun's blood fire. That sword spirit, the evil swords will stare at the sword in Su Yun's hand in shock, and suddenly, he seemed to have understood something. This sword once absorbed the power of my body, and took it for itself? That's right. It used to be a nameless sword, but today, its name will shake the world and become the sword that saves the world. Su Yun roared. The eyes of reincarnation released blood fire, his entire body pouncing towards the evil sword's will. The terrifying blood fire was like shackles binding the evil sword's will. The ominous sword will release a mournful roar. The blood fire crazily burned his body. He was completely an incarnation of will, and Su Yun used his own soul and consciousness as the price to burn it. The power produced was shockingly able to restrain him. Boom! The terrifying, ferocious aura of the entire immortal world condensed and transformed into an incomparably huge hand. Just a single finger of this hand was comparable to the size of the ultimate martial world, and the hand pulled out the gigantic sword body. Holding onto the sword tightly, it fiercely thrusted towards Su Yun. Just the might of the sword was enough to tear Su Yun apart. However, he still refused to let go, as if he wanted to merge with the will of the ominous sword. No one can stop me. They were all going to die. The 10,000 worlds shall become my nourishment. The evil swords will scream. Bang! The evil sword's gigantic sword body directly smashed onto Su Yun's body, as if using a diamond drill to smash a grain of rice. But the terrifying power was directly transmitted from the gigantic body to Su Yun's body. Without any suspense, Su Yun's body immediately shattered, not even leaving a trace behind, and instantly turned into smoke and disappeared. However, he did not die because of this. After his body was destroyed, underneath his body, there was actually a person formed from blood and fire. This blood and fire person actually burned the tip of the evil sword until it was completely red, and both of his arms used all of his strength to suppress the evil sword's will like a shackle, not allowing it to escape. How could this be? The evil sword's will opened its eyes wide, looking at the scene in disbelief. Finally, on Su Yun's back, where the evil sword's tip had pierced, a white light actually lit up. The white light was like a shield, preventing the evil sword's power from continuing to invade Su Yun's body. This is the source energy of the evil sword? The evil sword's will was in disbelief, but very quickly, he understood that this was the power that Ling Qing had given to Su Yun the moment she lost control of the evil sword. And Su Yun had long known of this power, but he had always hidden it. His goal was to use it to block the evil sword's main body. Under the burning of Su Yun's blood and fire, the evil sword will gradually withered. His power was quickly disappearing, but he did not die. He still held onto the evil sword that could destroy the myriad worlds. He knew that relying on the evil sword would not be able to kill Su Yun, so he chose to give up. Burn, burn, I'll let you know what despair is. The evil sword's will roared. His pale white body started to distort, but a burst of energy suddenly spread out from his body, causing the evil sword that was pressing down on Su Yun's body to suddenly move. Su Yun was shocked. He raised his head to look, only to see the gigantic hand holding onto the evil sword, fiercely thrusting towards the immortal world. The majestic stream of air fiercely struck the broken boundary of the immortal world. The gigantic evil sword itself directly smashed into the immortal world, fiercely smashing towards the next realm. Crap! Su Yun's heart jumped. Don't! The spirit world below was immediately attacked by the evil sword. In almost a breath's time, the spirit world was destroyed and everything turned into ashes. The consciousness of countless living beings turned into streams of light and flew toward the evil sword's main body to replenish it. Chapter 1566. In a huge spirit world, the number of living beings contained within was almost incalculable, and the experts inside were not any weaker than the immortal world. However, none of them were able to withstand the attack of the evil sword, and all of them died miserably under the evil sword. This realm directly raised the evil sword's will energy to the state before the eyes of Samsara burned it. Ha, do you see that? You are powerless to reverse the situation. You don't want to be dominated by me? I'm afraid not. The will laughed out loud. At that moment, his laughter was accentuated, and the power he used to struggle free from Su Yun became stronger and stronger. But he did not stop and continued to drive the evil sword towards the next realm. The spirit world was like a piece of glass that had been smashed by a sledgehammer. Not a single piece was intact, and everything on top of it had turned into ashes. As for the sledgehammer, it continued to howl as it smashed towards the next realm. The terrifying chi wave and the terrifying pressure caused the void to shatter. Before the evil sword even arrived, the next realm had already shattered into pieces. Just as Su Yun was in a daze, the evil sword had directly destroyed 3 realms, and all the living beings on these realms had turned into nourishment, nourishing the evil sword's will. His body became even more robust, even stronger, and even more terrifying. The evil sword headed towards the 4th realm. With its speed and terror, it would not take more than an incense stick of time to destroy the myriad realms. There was no time. He had to destroy the evil sword's will as soon as possible. Otherwise, everything would be over. Su Yun's burning body suddenly became more vigorous, crazily burning the will. But the speed was too slow. Before it could eat much, the evil sword's will would destroy the world to replenish it. If it destroyed all the realms in one go, the will would increase to an unprecedented height, and even if Su Yun used his own soul and consciousness as the price to counterattack, he would not be able to contend against it. Clang! At this moment, the gigantic evil sword that was falling down suddenly stopped. The gigantic sword trembled for a moment and released an earth-shattering sound. The sound was so loud that it seemed to be able to shatter a realm. What? The evil sword widened its eyes as it looked towards the bottom of the evil sword in disbelief. Su Yun also felt extremely shocked. Looking towards the direction of the voice, the scene caused him to be completely shocked. At the bottom of the evil sword, there were tens of thousands of people densely packed together. There were people at the peak of the spirit profound god, experts of the origin ruins, experts of the god realm, and even 2 ancestors. There is a large formation set up there. The spirit profound god and the people of the ruins stood on the formation point. The experts of the sealed god realm stood at the eye of the formation, cooperating with the formation to resist the falling ominous sword, and the 2 ancestors released all of their strength, transforming into giants, blocking the falling ominous sword. However, everyone seemed to be struggling. All of their faces were flushed red. They gasped for breath, the energy in their bodies splashing everywhere, and in less than 4 breaths of time, the spirit god existences could no longer hold on. Many of their skin started to crack, and after 2 breaths of time, a weak immortal's body directly shattered, his soul dissipated, and the pressure from the evil sword continued to increase. These immortals had all received the news in advance, and had organized themselves to deal with the impending ominous sword. This was a realm filled with crystals, and the energy here was extremely abundant. Although it could not compare to the immortal realm, it was not too bad. Everyone, hold on. We absolutely can't let the ominous sword do as it pleases. The 2 progenitors shouted. Some were afraid, some were determined, some were unafraid of death, and some were filled with regret. But at this moment, there was no way out. Retreat meant death. Finally, someone saw the red and white figure beside the huge hand at the front of the evil sword. What's that? One of the ancestors opened his eyes wide and stared at Su Yun. The powerful energy that came from there made them feel incomparable fear. It was a power that could truly split the heavens and earth, a power that could truly create 10,000 worlds. And you can't stop me. It was one thing for the evil sword to be restrained by Su Yun, but now a group of immortals had jumped out to stop him. How could he not be angry? The huge hand that was holding the evil sword was controlled by the will and used all of its strength to press down. The evil sword seemed to feel the anger from the will and released all of its sword force. The enormous sword might instantly shatter the entire realm into pieces, and the formation and the people on it were also instantly turned into ashes, disappearing into thin air. Even the 2 ancestors were covered in cracks, on the verge of death, and finally died under the terrifying sword might of the evil sword, splitting the heavens and breaking the earth, shattering the cycle of reincarnation, manipulating fate, ignoring everything. Who could control the evil sword? This terrifying power was not something that immortals could imagine. The evil sword was the heavens, the gods. How could humans contend against it? The destruction of this realm, the death of a group of elite immortals, including 2 ancestors. If the evil swords were to absorb them, then his strength would immediately surpass Su Yun's current strength, and he would be able to break free from Su Yun's restraints. At that time, no one will be able to suppress Su Yun anymore. It's over. Everything is over. The evil swords will release a complacent laugh. Its upper half immediately split into a large mouth, with the intention of swallowing the dead people that had turned into flowing light to increase its own strength. But just then, Su Yun suddenly let go of him. What? Want to escape? The evil swords sneered. It had regained its freedom. How could it let Su Yun leave just like that? To the consciousness of this realm, Su Yun was obviously even more important because he was the only existence that surpassed the ancestors. But just at this moment, a shocking scene appeared. Su Yun broke away from the evil sword's will, turned around, opened his mouth, and suddenly sucked in. The flowing light that flew over was directly sucked into his body. His blood-fire body immediately became strong and exuberant. He actually imitated the evil sword's will and absorbed the consciousness of the people of this realm. No, the evil sword was shocked. The current Su Yun was also a body of consciousness. If the evil sword could absorb it, then he could too. It was just that the evil sword did not expect Su Yun to do that. But like this, the evil sword did not have any misgivings. He immediately turned and rushed towards the sword eye. At the same time, the huge evil sword controlled the evil sword to slash at Su Yun without holding back. Su Yun, who had completely absorbed the consciousness of the realm, had become countless times stronger. His blood-fire body was even more terrifying. His entire body was covered in fire armor. In his hands was the death sword spirit formed from the blood fire. The eyes of reincarnation in his eyes seemed to have been opened again. With blood and fire as the foundation, they continued to spin, the pupils reflecting the mysterious light of reincarnation, and behind his back, a pair of gigantic fire-bone wings appeared. It was the mantra after the consciousness was strengthened. Rumble. The evil sword fiercely slashed towards him, but he did not block it. He could not block it. Ling Qingyu's power was only on his back. It was impossible for him to completely defend against the evil sword. Furthermore, at this moment, he did not plan to block it. Even though he had become stronger, in front of the evil sword, this strength was still incomparably small. Furthermore, his blood and soul were about to be exhausted. He did not have the time to tangle with the evil sword's will any longer. Su Yun rushed forward, his body suddenly transforming into a gigantic fire chain, instantly wrapping around the evil sword's will. I've said it before, you can't trap me. The evil sword's will roared again and again. Carrying the evil sword, it continued to attack the next realm. Dong, 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 dong. In the blink of an eye, the evil sword had broken through over 100 realms, and all of the consciousness of these realms were absorbed by him. Su Yun did not snatch it, because the evil sword was always waiting for Su Yun to take action to snatch the consciousness. Because as long as Su Yun stopped binding the evil sword's will, the evil sword's will be able to freely control the evil sword to kill Su Yun. If he was bound, he would have nowhere to attack, and if he was not careful, the evil sword would accidentally injure his own will. The absorption of the consciousness of over 100 realms allowed the evil sword's will to grow stronger and stronger. The terrifying power of consciousness continued to shake the current Su Yun. But Su Yun, who had turned into a fire chain, did not have any reaction. He had been tightly binding the evil sword's will, as though he wanted to trap him forever. However, both he and the evil sword's will knew that it was impossible. Ice World. Just then, the ice-cold interface suddenly stimulated Su Yun. This interface only lasted for a breath of time in front of Su Yun's consciousness, and then it disappeared into thin air. After this interface, it was the interface that Su Yun was familiar with, the ultimate martial world. The ultimate martial world was connected to the Wanhua realm, and the ultimate martial sacred plane was also within the realm outline of the ultimate martial world. Although many people related to Su Yun in the ultimate martial world had retreated to the true devil realm, the Master Subhoodie had not left yet. He said that this time, he did not want to escape. Su Yun was unable to convince him, but no matter what, he was not willing to see his master die under the evil sword. The flames loosened and quickly transformed back into Su Yun's original appearance. Have you given up? The evil sword's will laughed out loud, and then its body started to squirm, gradually turning into a big mouth, and actually wanted to bite Su Yun. Kachi. Half of Su Yun's body was directly bitten by the big mouth. The blood and fire reflected off each other. Su Yun clenched his teeth, but did not escape. Instead, he grabbed onto the evil sword's will with one hand. The flames in his eyes erupted, and his entire body surged with anger. You want to devour me? Dominate me? I've already said it. You can't dominate me. Furthermore, I want to dominate you. When the roar came out, Su Yun suddenly opened his mouth and fiercely bit towards the evil sword's will. The flames on his body were like the mouth of a fierce beast, and started to tear apart the evil sword's will. They no longer chose to burn their will, but to devour this enormous will. Ridiculous! How laughable! You want to devour me with just you. It's still not certain who will devour who. The evil swords will laughed out loud, and then saw the huge murderer raise the evil sword again, smashing towards the next interface. The ultimate martial world welcomed its final moment. The sword of extermination pierced through the boundary line and descended from the sky. The sword pressure began to tear apart the earth, evaporate the seawater, and crush all living things. But just at this moment, a circle of green light suddenly erupted from the center of the ultimate martial world. Following that, a large tree quickly grew from the place where the green light erupted, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge tree that could support the sky, and the top of the tree directly supported the falling evil sword, firmly supporting it. Teacher, Suyin turned his head to look and roared again and again. The Bodhi tree was formed by the master subhoodie. However, even so, it was difficult to defend against the attack of the evil sword. The big tree instantly collapsed and was split apart by the evil sword. The master subhoodie had fallen. I will devour you. The flames on Su Yun's body seemed to have been poured with a bucket of oil, burning more and more vigorously. Fool, you're actually accelerating the burning of your soul and consciousness. Although you can strengthen your willpower for a short period of time, you won't be able to hold on for much longer. I think I only need to hold on for another 20 breaths, and the battle between us will end. But before that, let me have a good meal. The evil swords will laugh loudly and allowed the sword to continue descending. Boom! The ultimate martial world that was flourishing for a time was instantly shattered. Countless living beings perished and turned into ashes, becoming the dust of history. After piercing through the boundary line, a dense wave of life force swept over, resisting the terrifying evil chi released by the evil sword. Wanhua Realm. He had finally arrived at the Wanhua Realm. No. Just then, Su Yun suddenly let out a mournful scream. The entire Wanhua Realm was already empty. Everyone had been taken away by the Realm Master, but the Realm Master did not leave, as Su Yun had said. On top of the gigantic world tree, the frail figure stood there quietly. She raised her pure eyes and looked at the descending peerless sword. There was no fear, no despair, no sorrow on her beautiful face, only helplessness and a sweet smile that was revealed toward Su Yun. It's really good to meet you. Regardless of whether I win or lose this time, at least I'm standing in front of you, she said softly. Her voice was so weak that it seemed to drift away with the wind, but Su Yun could hear it clearly, and it struck straight at his soul. Her body suddenly split open, transforming into specks of green light that started to sprinkle onto the gigantic world tree. The world tree that looked like it was about to wither once again flourished and changed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ancestor of nature, you are the reincarnation of the ancestor of nature. The evil swords will let out a mournful roar. The world tree turned into a gigantic sword sheath and soared into the sky, covering the evil sword, directly covering the terrifying sword body. Chapter 1567. Dong! The sword scabbard covered his body, and the power of the evil sword immediately dissipated. The evil sword brought the sword body down, but it did not shatter the Wanhua realm. Instead, a speck of light below fiercely resisted the evil sword. Su Qing'er. She was also in the Wanhua realm. However, even with the realm tree as the scabbard to seal the majority of the evil sword's power, the remaining power was not something that Su Qing'er could contend against. However, she did not want to see the evil sword destroy the myriad worlds just like that. So many people had sacrificed themselves to stop the evil sword, and as the ancestor, did she really want to wait for the evil sword to descend in the last true devil realm, for history to be shattered, and for everything to cease to exist? Even if she could watch all of this, what about Su Yun? How could she watch as the person she cared about the most face the sword alone? She couldn't, and Su Yun couldn't. She knew, and Su Yun knew. The Wanhua realm shattered bit by bit, and layers of vines climbed up from the gigantic wooden sword sheath, extending towards the sword hilt of the evil sword. You can't trap me. If you do this, it will only make me stronger. The evil swordswell was not afraid because of this. Instead, it was extremely excited. His entire body emitted circles of light, driving the evil sword to continue exerting force. A terrifying evil chi seeped out from the sword sheath and wrapped around the sword sheath. The sword sheath within the evil chi immediately corroded. Realm Master used his own power as the price, but was unable to completely seal the evil sword. The power of the evil sword was slowly breaking free from the sword sheath suppression, becoming stronger bit by bit. Su Qinger also found it more and more difficult. Her white face was covered in blood. Her eyes were also bleeding. The ground beneath her feet was completely shattered. The gigantic evil sword was slowly pushing her into the Wanhua realm's boundary outline. But at that moment, the evil swords will suddenly felt pain. Immediately after, he was shocked to discover that his own strength had weakened by a bit. He opened his eyes wide and looked at the person in front of him, only to see that Su Yun seemed to have gone completely crazy. He opened his mouth and directly bit towards the evil sword's will. He bit and swallowed in big mouthfuls, ignoring everything else and shouting at the top of his lungs. What? The evil swords will sense that something was wrong. Su Yun's body was like a big mouth, crazily devouring. He seemed to have ignited his last bit of will. The current Su Yun no longer had his own consciousness. He was like a walking corpse, starting to devour the evil sword's will. The evil swords will hurriedly resisted, no longer daring to focus its attention on the evil sword. Instead, it focused on defending its will. As long as it could endure this period of time, it would win. However, he was shocked to discover that he was unable to resist Su Yun's devouring. Oh no! The vicious swords will suddenly realized. He had overlooked a very important thing, and that was that the current Su Yun possessed the highest level of willpower. He himself was already in existence that surpassed the ancestors. No one in the 10,000 realms had a consciousness stronger than him, and he had even devoured a few ancestors. His will was almost invincible, while the evil swords was merely the accumulation of the wills of the 10,000 realms. Most of them were extremely weak. In terms of numbers, Su Yun was completely defeated, but in terms of strength, the evil swords could not contend against Su Yun. Especially the current Su Yun, who did not care about anything else, crazily biting. Previously, he had relied on the consciousness of the 10,000 spirits that he had killed to replenish himself. But this time, the Wanhua realm that was full of vitality did not have anything, and did not replenish him. On the contrary, Su Yun had obtained an even stronger power through biting and devouring. Whiz! At this moment, a heaven-piercing sword hiss came from the top of the evil sword. The evil swords was stunned. It looked at the person in front of it, only to see a terrifying sword coming out from the person's body, directly piercing into his body and crazily burning. This was the death sword's sword spirit. Su Yun had actually bitten a hole in his body, and then sent the death sword's sword spirit into the evil sword's will's body. Ha! Have you given up on resisting? When the evil swords saw it clearly, it laughed uncontrollably. It immediately closed the gap and absorbed the death sword's will that had entered its body. However, just as he was about to digest it, he realized that the truth was not as he had imagined. The death sword's sword spirit was not absorbed by him, but instead started to burn itself, destroying its own will and disintegrating the interior of the evil sword's will. How is this possible? The evil sword's will was stunned. However, in his line of sight, he saw a pair of ice-cold eyes that were wrapped in blood and fire. I've said it before, you can't control me, and I will control you. Su Yun opened his mouth and swallowed half of the evil sword's will in one gulp. At this moment, he had grown again, and the blood and fire that were about to be ignited were directly continued. You can't completely devour me. The evil swords will immediately summon countless fierce chi-s and wrap them around his body, completely isolating him from the outside world. He could not absorb the consciousness energy outside, nor could he attack Su Yun. Similarly, Su Yun could not attack him. However, he did not continue to devour the evil sword's will. Instead, he turned around and rushed towards the evil sword's sword eye. This is bad. The evil swords will seem to have sensed something. Dragging the incomplete will, it quickly rushed towards the sword eye. However, just as it was about to enter the sword eye, a wave of blood fire sealed the sword eye. If the evil swords will wanted to pass through, it would have to consume a large amount of will energy by the blood fire. But at this juncture, what else could he hesitate? The blood fire immediately rushed into the sword eye. However, just as he passed through the blood fire and crashed into the evil sword's interior, a blood-red mouth suddenly appeared in front of his eyes and swallowed his incomplete will. No! The evil sword released a roar and continued to struggle, but it was surrounded by the will of blood and fire, frantically burning and devouring him. Adding that the current will was broken, it could not be compared to Su Yun, so no matter how much he struggled, he could not escape from Su Yun's mouth. It turned out that Su Yun had purposely lured the evil swords well into the sword eye. He had set up the blood fire to consume the evil sword's evil chi, so that after he passed through the blood fire, he would not be able to use the evil chi to protect himself. In the end, you're just a will, not a human's thoughts, not a human. No matter how strong you are, how can you fight against the human heart? Su Yun completely swallowed the will into his stomach. Using his own blood fire as a guide, he crazily burned and devoured the evil sword's will. The will of the evil sword struggled and churned in his stomach, as though his stomach was about to burst. He held on with all his might and sat cross-legged at the sword eye of the evil sword, digesting and transferring the energy that he had swallowed into his stomach, turning it into his own power, increasing the strength of his own body of blood and fire. Just as the will was about to devour, the gigantic evil sword also stopped its bombardment. It pierced through the Wanhua realm's boundary line. Su Qing fell onto a piece of broken stone. She had already fainted. Her body was filled with blood marks. Her cultivation had been destroyed by more than half. The current her did not even have the strength of a spirit sage. "Let me out! Let me out!" The voice of the evil swords came out from Su Yun's stomach. It wanted to smash Su Yun's stomach, but the blood fire body was too terrifying. As long as it touched it, it would burn itself. How could it dare to fight head-on? Su Yun's body was like a cage, trapping it inside and slowly digesting it. No. The voice of the evil swords slowly became softer, and with the replenishment of the evil sword's will, Su Yun's originally dim blood fire body became more and more vigorous, faintly giving off a feeling of transcending the myriad worlds and jumping out of the cycle of reincarnation. Just like that, he sat cross-legged in front of the sword for an unknown period of time. The sword sheath formed by the realm tree that covered the body of the evil sword had already been corroded by the evil sword's chi, leaving only a piece of rotten wood attached to it. Su Qing opened her eyes with difficulty, looking at the gigantic sword body that was less than 10 meters away. Her pale face was filled with pain. The evil sword seems to have stopped. Su Qing's eyes revealed a trace of confusion. She suddenly raised her head, looked at the gigantic sword eye on the sword's body, and shouted with all her might, "Young master." However, no one responded for a long time. After an unknown period of time, the evil chi of the evil sword gradually became sparse. The gigantic sword also stopped trembling, and the shattered Wanhua realm slowly regained its clarity. It was as if everything had become peaceful after the storm had passed. Su Qing slowly stood up, her eyes becoming extremely empty. This terrifying sword was standing right in front of him. It did not destroy all the realms as he had expected, but stopped here. The evil sword would never stop for no reason. Then, there was only one possibility. Su Yun. It must be Su Yun's doing. Su Qing's eyes were overflowing with tears of blood. She wanted to shout, but she could not see any trace of Su Yun. Crash! Just then, a strange phenomenon occurred at the sword eye of the evil sword. A dense and strange white sword intent suddenly surged out from the sword eye, like a spider web. It wrapped around the entire evil sword, and the evil sword's body started to tremble again. Su Qing's eyes widened. despair filling the depths of her eyes. Could it be that the silence just now was only temporary? The evil sword was not stopped? However, just as she was completely shocked by the scene in front of her, the few decaying realm tree wood on the evil sword suddenly peeled off by themselves. When the realm tree wood landed on the ground, it immediately released waves of golden light, and the sword also shot out a snow-white lustrous light that poured into the realm tree wood. Very quickly, the realm tree wood transformed into the appearance of a person, and upon closer inspection, it was actually the realm master. Seeing that, Su Qing immediately rushed over and carried Realm Master. Realm Master closed her eyes. Her face was extremely pale. Her breathing was very weak. Her cultivation had already been completely lost. Su Qing immediately used the ancestor's qi to heal her, and not long after, Realm Master regained consciousness. Am I dead? Realm Master said weakly. You're fine. Su Qing hugged her tightly. I remember that my consciousness seemed to have been absorbed by the evil sword. Why didn't I die? Your consciousness was absorbed by the evil sword? Hearing that, Su Qing's entire body trembled. She raised her small face and looked at her seriously, then asked in a low voice, Did young master save you? Was it the young master who saved you? Is that right? She was a little agitated, but Realm Master shook her head helplessly. She was not clear about all of this, but not long after, the huge, ominous sword moved again. Suddenly, countless streams of light surged out from the huge body of the ominous sword. It was like a meteor shower in the night sky, dazzling and gorgeous. The two women hugged each other and raised their heads to stare at this scene. They were both in a daze and had fallen into infatuation. After an unknown period of time, the strange phenomenon suddenly disappeared. Immediately after, the gigantic sword body suddenly became smaller, and in an instant, it became the size of an ordinary sword, and beside the sword stood a person whose entire body was glowing with light. Su Yun, young master. Seeing that, the two girls were overjoyed and shouted excitedly. Su Yun closed his eyes, holding onto the sword in his hand. He stood in the broken sky of the Wanhua realm, as though he was comprehending something. The light on his body gradually weakened, as though he had recovered his physical body, but he was clear that this was not his physical body. The current him was no longer the Su Yun from before. He had lost his physical body and had also lost all of his cultivation, but he had also obtained a new body, the sword spirit of the evil sword. After devouring the evil sword's will, Su Yun replaced it and directly obtained control of the evil sword. The current evil sword was already used by him. Because of this, the myriad realms would be in his hands, and the so-called fate would finally be in his hands. However, Su Yun was not happy because of this. He opened his eyes, looked at the broken ground, and slowly descended. Su Qing threw herself over and laid in Su Yun's embrace, crying nonstop. Even Realm Master let go of her usual modesty and leaned on Su Yun's shoulder as though she had found a warm harbor. Is everything over? Su Qing asked softly. It's all over. Su Yun raised his head and said with a smile. This sword? It's under my control. Su Yun raised the evil sword and looked at the cold sword body, his expression grave and silent. The two girls looked at each other and could feel the seriousness in Su Yun's heart. Young master, what's wrong? Su Qing asked. Su Yun hesitated for a moment, then suddenly gripped the sword hilt tightly. He revealed a seemingly relaxed smile to the two girls, then shook his head. I need to leave for a while. Where to? The two girls asked in unison. To find someone. He caressed Su Qing's face and then said gently to Realm Master, You guys wait for me in the true devil realm, okay? When can we return? Realm Master asked. Su Yun was silent. The two girls looked at him with shining eyes. After an unknown period of time, he smiled and turned around, flying into the distance. I will definitely come back. Wait for me. Chapter 1568. He had saved the myriad realms, saved the common people, saved his family, saved his close friends, but he did not save Ling Qingyu. Even if the myriad realms were not destroyed, and everything was stopped, so what? He was still not happy. He passed through the layers of broken realms and headed towards the immortal world that had already turned into dust. At this moment, the immortal world was already in chaos. There was nothing left, and even the sun and moon had shattered. Suyin did not stop at the immortal world, but followed the immortal world and rushed to the top. There was an extremely small new realm there, and this realm was man-made. This realm had actually existed since the primordial era, but very few people knew about it, and compared to the immortal world, the conditions of this realm were much different. The realm was extremely small, and because it was man-made, there were no resources, and the immortal energy was pitifully scarce. The only reason it existed was because it was located above the immortal world, and when the evil sword started to destroy the world, it could avoid the evil sword's evil chi and destructive power to the greatest extent. However, this was referring to the first round of destruction of the evil sword. When it reached the second round, this realm would not be able to resist, and in the end, this man-made realm was just a small realm ranked behind the true devil realm. But it didn't matter. When the evil sword was exterminating the world, the immortal power formed by the ancestors and the conferred God realm experts to resist the evil sword came from this realm. There were many experts from the immortal world gathered in this realm, and most of them were existences from the origin ruins and the conferred God realm. They thought that this realm would be able to protect him, but in reality, the destruction of this realm was only a matter of time. When Su Yun was devouring the consciousness of the ancestor, he found out about this realm and immediately rushed over. When he stepped into the nameless realm, more than half of the exterior of the realm had been corroded by the evil chi, and a huge and broken barrier imprint could still be clearly seen. With a leap, he moved almost instantaneously and immediately landed in the center of the realm. At this moment, in the center of the realm, an ancestor was surrounded by thousands of powerful immortals. They sat cross-legged, as though they were recuperating, and all of them were trembling. Su Yun's appearance caused many people to be shocked, especially the only ancestor in the center. He opened his eyes, stared at Su Yun, and asked with slight surprise, "Your face is so familiar. Are you from the outside world?" "Not bad," Su Yun said indifferently. "The ominous sword has started to destroy the world, but all of you do not want to stop it, and instead hide here to live. Compared to Ancestor Hao Yu and Ancestor Tian Lu, all of you are extremely lowly. Bright Moon and Heavenly Flow were the names of the two progenitors who had resisted the ominous sword. How dare you speak to Lord Primogenitor like this? Do they not want to live anymore? Get down here." Seeing that Su Yun was so arrogant, an immortal immediately shouted. But as soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying, ferocious aura suddenly surged around his body and instantly swallowed him. When the ferocious aura ended, that person had already vanished without a trace, and not even a scrap of him remained. What? The surrounding immortals all stood up in unison, looking at this scene in shock. The scene immediately boiled over. The primogenitor in the center was even more shocked. Ferocious chi? This was the aura of a ferocious sword. "Who are you?" The primogenitor roared. "I am the new ruler of the multiverse. You should have heard of my name. I am Su Yun. Now, I want you to do something, and you must cooperate with me," Su Yun said indifferently. Su Yun? Hearing that, the ancestor was overwhelmed with shock. How could no one know of this name? "I never thought that it would be you. Su Yun, why are you here? What's going on outside?" "You don't need to care about what's going on outside. Now, I want you to offer up all of your cultivation and use the power of your heart origin as a guide to take out the stone of life." Su Yin continued to speak indifferently. But as soon as he said that, the scene immediately exploded into an uproar. Some people did not understand what the stone of life was, but the ancestor and the people around him had heard of the stone of life like thunder. Stone of life. That was the stone of heavenly Tao. The birth of a fate envoy would definitely be illuminated by the stone of heavenly Tao. This stone only existed in fate, and it wouldn't easily appear in front of others, unless one summoned it with boundless power. No one would do such a thing, not even the primogenitor. Su-yun, if you want us to forcefully summon the stone of life, other than using our own cultivation as the price, there is no other way. If we do as you say, we will all become cripples. Do you think we can agree to it? The ancestor shouted. You have no choice. Su-yun stared at the ancestor and said coldly, You are just a single person. How dare you be so arrogant? Another immortal was unconvinced. Su-yun was completely forcing them. I will only give you 3 breaths of time to consider. After 3 breaths of time, if you do not agree, I will destroy the world. Su-yun closed his eyes. There was no room for discussion, and every word he said, in the ears of these people, caused their bodies to turn cold, and they felt unbearable pain. Destroy the world? There were so many experts here. Could it be that Su-yun did not care? But just then, the ancestor spoke. He lowered his head and was silent for a moment, then said, It is said that the stone of life is the stone of fate. It has always been hidden in the fate of the myriad worlds. It already has a spirit. It can control other people's fate at will and destroy their fate. It can even use the power of fate to change other people's fate. It is supreme. It is the true ruler. Su-yun, what exactly do you want to do? Do you want us to help you summon the stone of life? No need to waste words. Quickly do it. Su-yun said in a low voice. They were forced into a corner. No one here wanted to die. Even if their cultivation was gone, it was at least better than losing their lives, and the ancestor was the same. In fact, there were not many great immortals here, and there was only one ancestor. In terms of strength, this power was nothing. But this ancestor was completely different from the others, because he was an ancestor who was proficient in the art of divination. There was only one such person in the 10,000 worlds, and it was precisely because he predicted that the evil sword would launch a second world destruction, that he created such a world to defend against it. But the matter of the evil sword was too big. He was unable to completely predict it, so he did not know about this world, and was unable to provide him with absolute protection. If not for Su-yun successfully stopping the evil sword, it was only a matter of time before this world was destroyed. The primogenitor started to set up the formation, and the immortals cooperated. Everyone used the formation to transfer power to the primogenitor. The primogenitor stood in the sky and used his small world as a guide to shatter it. He extracted the purest primogenitor power and spread it in the sky, guiding the most mysterious existence that wandered the fate of all worlds. A human-shaped stone that flickered with a rainbow-colored light slowly floated out from the void. Its halo was incomparably dazzling. Its chi was extremely profound. It was indescribably mystical. This stone of life had existed since the desolate era, and it was said that it was born together with the evil sword, but it was not as terrifying as the evil sword. When the stone appeared, all the immortals below knelt down and kowtowed. Even the ancestor did the same. But Su-yun leaped up and landed in front of the stone of life. He held onto the evil sword with one hand and stared coldly at the stone. You should know the reason why I summoned you out, he said coldly. The evil sword's spirit is the transformation of the evil sword's own soul. Regardless of whether it is Ling Qingyu or the will that you devoured, they're all the evil sword's own. Ling Qingyu is already dead. Even if you subdue the evil sword, you cannot revive her. This is determined by fate. A hollow and emotionless voice came out from the stone of life. A person's life and death, how can it be determined by fate? This is the reality. But the reality is, I have already controlled fate, and I will break it, allowing the lives of the 10,000 worlds to throw away their shackles, reincarnate to their heart's content. They will no longer be controlled or threatened by anything. You can't do it. The voice was still hollow. Who said that? Su-yun suddenly revealed an evil smile. He raised the evil sword and instantly struck the stone of life. Clang dang! The stone of life that was immune to the ancestor's power was instantly broken into pieces by the terrifying evil sword and instantly shattered. What? The people below were completely shocked. In the 10,000 worlds, there will no longer be fate. If you want to talk about fate, then I am fate. Whoever I want to live will live. Whoever I want to die will die. Su Yun held onto the evil sword, broke through the void, and left. He passed through the primal immortal realm, walked past the broken spirit realm, passed through the ultimate martial world that had already turned into dust, passed through countless of worlds, and finally, he arrived at a familiar but unknown world. Sky Martial Continent. The current Sky Martial Continent was different. The evil sword did not have the time to destroy the weak world. Su Yun entered and quickly headed towards the location of the Su family. But in the years that he had been away, the Sky Martial Continent had changed greatly. Even the Su family had long moved away. Who knew how many years had passed? Su Yun arrived at the Heaven Dog Mountain in the ambitious region. The desolate mountain did not have many changes in the past few years. A few spirit intermediate realm cultivators with swords on their backs walked on the mountain, as though they were rushing. Su Yun flew to the peak of the Heaven Dog Mountain. Looking at the desolate mountain, he started to recall his memories. He waved his hand. The void split open and grabbed out a broken box. It was the limitless sword sheath. When the evil sword broke through the seal of the sword sheath, Su Yun immediately kept it. It was just that the current limitless sword sheath was already broken, and it was extremely difficult to seal the evil sword. But luckily, he no longer needed to use the sword sheath to seal the evil sword, because he was the evil sword. He placed the sword sheath on a piece of desolate rock in front of him, took a deep breath, and leaped into the broken sword sheath. Inside the world of the sword sheath, it was completely dark. The chi left behind by the evil sword had not completely dissipated. The entire world was hazy and extremely dark. Su Yun landed at the bottom of the world of the sword sheath and walked lightly. As he walked forward, the dark world gradually brightened up, and the hazy chi gradually disappeared. As he gazed at this silent world, he couldn't help but recall everything that had happened between him and that girl. There were tears and laughter, blood and tears, shouting at the top of his lungs, as well as heartbreaking and bone-biting tenderness. Everything seemed like it happened yesterday, but it also seemed like a lifetime ago. He walked quietly watching. He knew that the girl had not left him, but had always been by his side. After an unknown period of time, Su Yun, who was quietly walking forward, his body started to emit a sparkling light, but after the light appeared, it quickly disappeared. He took a few steps forward and suddenly stopped. At this moment, a voice that sounded like the sounds of nature entered his ears. It was like a cool breeze blowing from the horizon, gentle and pleasant to listen to, and unforgettable for the rest of his life. "What are you doing?" This voice almost made his heart tighten in an instant. He smiled, but his pair of determined eyes became hazy. He suddenly turned around, and a small face that was as exquisite as jade entered his line of sight. The two faces were separated by less than half a finger, and he could clearly see the smile on her small face, and she could clearly see the deep love and joy in his eyes. The girl was still the same. She had an almost perfect oval face. Her hair was straight and straight. Her eyes were like water, and her skin was as white as snow. She was only wearing a snow-white dress. Her feet were like golden lotuses, and she was standing on the ground naked. She was not wearing any clothes, but she was so beautiful. Su Yun extended his hand out and hugged the girl tightly in his embrace without saying a word. The girl did not resist and hugged him tightly, her eyes slightly closed, but the corner of her mouth raised into a blissful smile. Su Yun knew that Ling Qingyu had always been in his consciousness, and when she was unable to suppress the new will of the ominous sword, she injected the last of her power into Su Yun's body, and this power also helped Su Yun block the attack of the ominous sword's main body. But after blocking it, it fell into eternal slumber. In order to awaken Ling Qingyu, Su Yun had to completely cut off his fate and replace it with himself. "Where's the ominous sword?" "I've already stopped it. It's just my sword now." "Your sword? Then you?" "Yes, I'm already the sword spirit of the ominous sword." "You? Then who am I?" Ling Qingyu asked. "Who you are is not important. What's important is that I will be by your side." Su Yun extended his hand out, caressed Ling Qingyu's head, and smiled. Chapter 1569. The 10,000 realms had been attacked, and the immortal realm was no longer there, but this did not affect the development of the 10,000 realms. Although Su Yun had become the sword spirit of the evil sword, and had become the ruler of the world, he had never had any interest in dominating the world. After all of this was over, Su Yun returned to the true devil realm, and there were still many people waiting for him there. However, Su Yun did not plan to stay here. Instead, he brought Su Qinger, Hu Qianmei, Realm Master, Long Xianli, and the others back to the Sky Martial Continent. No matter how strong he was, at least he had walked out from here, and there was a nod in his heart. The 10,000 worlds regained their peace. Everyone was glad that they were still alive. They all knew that the person who stopped all of this was Su Yun. Unknowingly, they had already regarded this peerless person as a god in their hearts. No one dared to go against him. Even the ancestors were like ants in front of him. The immortal world had already been destroyed, the spirit realm had also collapsed, and even the Bei Yang had been shattered. The head of the myriad realms had become the Wanhua realm. Xiao Chua was still in the primal chaos of the past, and this was the immortal world that had been destroyed by the evil sword. She hoped to be able to search for the traces left behind by the powerful immortals who had died, or the wealth that had been lost. Of course, not only the immortal world, the entire myriad realms would become a place for her to travel and cultivate. She would never be satisfied, and she would never stop pursuing the martial way. A ray of light suddenly flickered in the primal chaos. Seeing that, Xiao Chua's eyes lit up, and she immediately flew over. However, just as she approached the light, a familiar figure appeared before her eyes. The light was merely an accessory on the figure's clothes. But seeing this figure, Xiao Chua was still extremely surprised. "Why are you here?" Xiao Chua sized up the person in front of him, his eyes still filled with a strong fighting spirit. "I'm not here to fight with you." The person in front of her noticed her fighting spirit and said with a smile, "I know you're not here to fight with me, and the current me. I'm afraid I can't even win against a single finger of yours, but Su Yun, I believe that sooner or later I will definitely defeat you, and when I step onto the peak of the martial way, I will definitely be able to do it." Xiao Chua said firmly, "The title of Valkyrie is not just for show. I will look forward to that day." Su Yun smiled calmly. "Then what are you doing here?" "I'm getting married. 7 days later." "Oh, with whom?" "You'll know when you get there." Su Yun extended his hand. A circle of lustrous light aura appeared on his palm. Following that, a scroll appeared. He handed it over, and Xiao Chua accepted it. A trace of disappointment flashed across her eyes, but she quickly concealed it. Looking at the scroll, she asked, "What is this?" "This is a teleportation scroll that I made. As long as you crush it, you will be able to reach the Sky Martial Continent." "Oh." Xiao Chua sized up the scroll in his hand and closed his eyes to feel the profoundness contained within. After a moment, he was extremely shocked and clicked his tongue. In the end, it's Su Yun. The spatial laws inside are simply too terrifying. I'm afraid I won't be able to comprehend it in my entire life. If you want to learn, I can teach you anytime." Su Yun said bluntly. "Forget it. How could I possibly dare to trouble the hegemon?" Xiao Chua shook her head as if she was joking. "I don't want to rely on you. I just want to rely on myself. Maybe it will be very hard. Maybe it will take a lot of time, but that's not important. I respect power, and I enjoy the process of cultivation." "I know." Su Yun naturally understood. All these years, he had always understood Xiao Chua very well. "All right, it's getting late. I still have things to do, so I'll be leaving first. I'll wait for you in the Sky Martial Continent." Su Yun waved his hand, turned and left, his body gradually disappearing into the primal chaos. "All right," Xiao Chua said with a bright smile. But after Su Yun left, her smile gradually disappeared. Her gaze shifted and landed on the scroll in her hand. She silently looked at the scroll, her small hands slightly clenched, and in the end, she sighed. The faint anticipation in her heart was finally extinguished by reality. At this moment, she suddenly did not want to pursue the so-called martial way. "What are you sighing for?" Just then, a voice suddenly came out from beside her ear. Xiao Chua was shocked. She almost fell down. Looking, it was actually Su Yun, and he was still looking at her with that evil smile. What are you doing? Even if your cultivation is high, you can't bully people like this, right? Xiao Chua glared at him and said angrily, I'm sorry, I forgot that I still have something to give you. Su Yun said with an apologetic look. What is it? Su Yun took out a fiery red robe from somewhere and handed it over to Xiao Chua. Xiao Chua stared blankly at the robe, as if she had become a fool. After an unknown period of time, she extended her hand out and received it with trembling hands. Her eyes looked at Su Yun in confusion, but he smiled and said gently, Since you've accepted it, then it means you've agreed. When did you become so shameless? Xiao Chua laughed, tears flickering in her eyes. It's not the first day you've known me. That's true. She wiped the corner of her eyes. When you're done with your matters, come find me. I'll be waiting for you in the Sky Martial Continent. And if I don't come, I'll tie you up and bring you back. You're robbing a commoner. Xiao Chua snorted. Yes, so what? Who can you find for justice? Su Yun crossed his arms and said. Hearing that, Xiao Chua was speechless, but she scolded him with a smile. You're too tyrannical. Su Yun wiped the corner of her eyes, smiled, and turned to leave. Hey, Su Yun, wait. Xiao Chua shouted. What's wrong? Su Yun turned and looked at her. Xiao Chua laughed craftily and said, Do you know who I met a while ago? Who? Your old lover, Baiyin Shan. Xiao Chua laughed. Oh, Baiyin Shan? Hearing that, Su Yun shook his head. Although she and I came from the Sky Martial Continent, but if you say that she's my old lover, then you're wrong. But what is she doing here? What else can she do? She's the same as me, Xiao Chua said. Is that so? Su Yun thought for a moment, then said, Baiyin Shan is the same as you. She admires the martial Tao, but you admire it rationally, she admires it blindly, and more often than not, she will only get half the result with twice the effort because of a small loss. The desire to chase after power has blinded her heart, so it is very difficult to achieve the great Tao. With that said, Su Yun turned and disappeared. Hearing that, Xiao Chua did not make a sound. She laughed and kept the clothes happily, then turned and flew towards the hazy primal chaos. After bidding farewell to Xiao Chua, Su Yun's figure once again appeared in an ethereal place. This was the Hai Guang realm, a realm that was not smaller than the ultimate martial world. After the ominous sword destroyed the world, most of the spirit cultivator took this place as their main realm, and other than the Wanhua realm, this was the most flourishing realm. In the center of the Hai Guang realm, there was a high hall, and the hall master was a white-haired old man. The old man stood outside the hall, looking at the blazing sun. His dim yellow eyes were extremely turbid, as though he was deep in thought. Not long after, two figures slowly walked out from the hall. They were two middle-aged men, one male and one female. Their cultivation levels were not low, but their foreheads were covered in wrinkles, and their faces were haggard. Father, you should go in and rest for a while. The middle-aged woman supported the old man and said softly, I'm not tired. The old man shook his head. The middle-aged man at the side did not make a sound for a long time. He lowered his head, and no one knew what he was thinking. This is truly fate. Have you ever thought that he would have such a day? The old man suddenly laughed at himself and turned to look at the two of them. The middle-aged woman's expression froze. She wanted to say something, but when she opened her mouth, she could not say a single word. No, he will be getting married in the future. Now that he has sent an invitation, it proves that he still has us in his heart. Father, why don't you go? The middle-aged man at the side hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. However, just as he finished speaking, the old man snorted coldly. You still have the face to go? Back then, in order to save Luluo, how many years did you lie to him? How much suffering did you make him suffer? How much life and death had he experienced? Now you still want to see him? I really didn't know that my son-in-law was actually such a thick-skinned person, even if he is willing to recognize you. Do you really have a nerve to do so? But father, the reason why others sent the invitation was because of Luluo. Do you really think that he has forgiven you? Maybe he has forgiven you, but what can he do? Don't think too much about it. He doesn't owe you anything, and he has nothing to do with you. In the future, give up on this thought and reflect on it. After the old man finished speaking, he turned around and walked into the hall. The man and woman looked at each other, let out a long sigh, and turned to walk in. Su Yin did not see this scene. He was not even in the upper Chong Hall that Shun Wu Huang had created, and after arriving at Chongguang Realm, he directly headed towards the new address of the unparalleled sect. After A.O. Wushuang experienced the extermination of the unparalleled sect, he brought the remnants of the sect to hide everywhere. After the Eternal God Council was destroyed by Su Yun, he came here to rebuild the unparalleled sect. When Shangguan Meiyang found out about this, she immediately came to reunite with her parents. The new unparalleled sect was located on a small island. The island was surrounded by green trees. Birds were chirping and flowers were fragrant. It was like a paradise. However, the entrance of the unparalleled sect was bustling with activity, with a large number of spirit cultivator going in and out. It was extremely lively. The unparalleled sect was a sect in the immortal world, and A.O. Wushuang was an immortal. To ordinary spirit cultivator, he was simply a god. After the ominous sword destroyed the world, a large number of immortals were scattered across the various realms, causing countless ordinary spirit cultivator and even mortals to start searching for immortals and step into the path of cultivation. Su Yin instantly landed in front of the door, but no one noticed his existence. He raised his head and looked at the 3 golden words on the door. He smiled and walked inside. "Stop right there, who are you? Why are you here?" It was the first time the guard saw Su Yun. He immediately stopped him and shouted, "May I ask, where is your sect leader?" "A.O. Wushuang?" Su Yun asked. "You want to see our sect leader? Who are you?" The guard looked at Su Yun strangely. "I am Su Yun." "Su Yun? Never heard of you, but you can wait here. I'll go and inform the sect leader." As soon as he finished speaking, the guard ran inside. However, not long after, A.O. Wushuang and Shangguan Qingsheng hurriedly ran out from the inside, causing the surrounding people to be very surprised. What made them even more surprised was that when the 2 of them ran to the young man in a brocade robe, they actually wanted to kneel down, but before their knees could touch the ground, the young man had already helped them up. "Please don't be so formal. It's not the first time we've met. Just be casual." Su Yin laughed and said. A.O. Wushuang and Shangguan Qingsheng looked at each other and nodded silently. "Su Yin, I never thought that after you became the strongest person in the myriad worlds, your heart would still not change. I admire you," A.O. Wushuang said with a smile. "Perhaps this is the reason why you were able to find the great Tao." Shangguan Qingsheng said. "It's just me." Su Yin laughed, looked around and asked, "Where's Mei Yang?" "Yang, she's in closed-door cultivation. I'll go call her out," A.O. Wushuang quickly said, then turned around, wanting to get a disciple to call Shangguan Meiyang over. But just then, a red bolt of lightning suddenly struck towards Su Yun. Its speed was extremely fast, catching people off guard. Just as the bolt of lightning approached Su Yun, it disappeared without a trace. Everyone looked in the direction where lightning had flown from and saw a girl with long pink hair walking out from inside. Seeing that, A.O. Wushuang's face changed and scolded, "Yang, don't be rude." "I'm fine." Su Yin laughed freely, looked at Shangguan Meiyang, crossed his arms and said, "Not bad. You're actually already a spirit god. Looks like you didn't waste the pills I gave you. Of course, even Qing is at the ancestor realm. If I, as her master, don't even have a spirit god, wouldn't that be too embarrassing?" Shangguan Meiyang snorted, then ran over, looked at Su Yun and asked, "Where have you been during this period of time?" "I've always been in the Sky Martial continent, and only recently had some time to come out to see you guys." "Is that so?" Shangguan Meiyang laughed, pursed her lips for a while, and asked, "How have you been recently?" "Not bad. What about you?" "I'm fine." Shangguan Meiyang looked around and said, "It's just that this place is too monotonous. It's boring. I want to take a walk outside." "Oh, how about going to my place to play?" "Your place?" Shangguan Meiyang looked at Su Yun and said, "Sure. I haven't been to the Sky Martial continent for a long time. I can go there to take a look. I also want to see how strong Qing is. In any case, it's not something you can challenge right now. You still need to work harder." She's your dual cultivation partner. No matter how hard I try, I'm afraid I won't be able to catch up. Shangguan Meiyang said dejectedly. Suddenly, she added, Su Yin, why don't I be your dual cultivation partner too? With that said, the surroundings became quiet. Oh Wu Shuang and Shangguan Qing Chung both stare at Shangguan Meiyang with their eyes wide open. No one made a sound. The surroundings were completely silent. It was extremely quiet. Shangguan Meiyang was nervous. Her face flushed red. Her small head immediately drooped down. Her 10 fingers were intertwined together. She did not know why she would say such a thing. Her heart was filled with regret. She carefully raised her head, looked at Su Yun's delicate and handsome face, and said with a trembling voice, About that, I was joking. All right. Just then, Su Yun suddenly interrupted Shangguan Meiyang's words. The corner of his mouth raised into a smile. His pair of sword eyes stared straight at Shangguan Meiyang and said playfully, Such a beautiful girl, throwing herself into my arms. How can I not want it? You're not allowed to go back on your words. Shangguan Meiyang was already stupefied. Her mind was blank. She never thought that Su Yun would actually agree. For a moment, she could not even speak properly. Ao Wushuang looked at Shangguan Qing Cheng, only to see that the corner of Shangguan Qing Cheng's mouth had also raised into a faint smile. In the gloomy netherworld, desolation and death spread across the land. Sinister-looking nether beasts roamed the land, and in the center of the netherworld sat a lonely figure, quietly looking at the horizon. Back then, I forced you to submit to me. I had no choice. I needed your strength. Now that everything is over, I will restore your freedom. Unknowingly, Su Yun was standing behind the figure and said. The Nether Empress turned. Her pair of golden eyes stared coldly at Su Yun. She snorted softly, then turned her head and said indifferently, Freedom? Where did freedom come from? You're already the ruler of the myriad worlds. The people of the myriad worlds are all under your control. Where did freedom come from? That's right. Everyone had to submit in front of absolute power. No one could be exempted. Although what you said is right, you have misjudged me. Su Yun walked to her side, sat down, looked at the desolation in the distance, and revealed a smile. Ever since I stepped on the path of cultivation, I have never thought of dominating anyone. I just want to protect the people around me, not let them be bullied. I don't want them to fall into despair. I don't want myself to fall into despair, that's all. Hearing that, the Nether Empress's beautiful eyes trembled. She turned her head to look at Su Yun, suddenly laughed at herself, but did not say anything. If you have time, come to the Sky Martial Continent for a visit. Although you are called the Nether Empress, if you stay here for too long, it will be easy to suffocate. Su Yun stood up, turned and left. The Nether Empress turned her head to look at him. Her face was expressionless, waited until he was far away. Then suddenly, Poochie, she laughed. That laughter actually made the desolated world glow with life. On top of a tall mountain in the true devil realm, two figures were crazily interweaving. An earth-shattering battle had erupted, but there was not much killing intent in the air, and around the mountain, there were many people, immortals, devil cultivator-s, and even ordinary spirit cultivator-s. Their eyes were like torches, staring at the two people fighting intensely on the mountain, unable to shift their gazes away. Octagon Aniseed sat on a large rock. His loose robe did not match his body at all. He stretched lazily and looked at the battle in front of him with a bored expression, as if he could fall asleep at any moment. In the end, it's a battle between experts. Why don't you have the slightest bit of energy? A voice suddenly floated into Octagon Aniseed's ears. Octagon Aniseed's body trembled, as if he had sensed who the person who spoke was. He did not turn his head and continued to speak lazily. Sword Ancestor, this guy. Does he have nothing to do after eating his fill? If you want to pursue the way of the sword, why do you need to find the holy devil fire? That holy devil fire is a battle-hungry person. Once this spar starts, it will be impossible to stop. Everyone else is watching obediently, not daring to miss a single scene. They want to comprehend something from it. But why do you look so indifferent? Don't you want to increase your cultivation? I don't want to. Octagon Aniseed laid on the rock, crossed his legs, and looked up at the sky. He muttered, "I've never thought about it. If I can train in the front, then I'll train. If I can't train to a certain realm, then forget it. As for the back, it's too difficult, so I might as well not train." "You're so carefree. That's why I'm optimistic." Octagon Aniseed chuckled. Suyin laughed. He took out a box from somewhere and handed it over to Octagon Aniseed, saying, "Give it to Master Ancestor for me." "What is this?" Octagon Aniseed took the box and wanted to open it, but was stopped by Suyin. "Let him open it. Even if you open it, you won't understand it." "Tsk. You're still keeping me in suspense. At most, I'll just stand by the side and watch when he opens it." Octagon Aniseed rolled his eyes at Suyin, muttered, and kept the box in his bosom, then fell to the ground and watched the battle lazily. Suyin stood up and turned to leave. "Hey, where you going?" Octagon Aniseed glanced at him and asked. "Go back," Suyin said casually. "Oh, I'll come play with you in a few days. If the true devil sect is fine, you can come over. After all, you are now the sect leader. You still have to set an example." "Sect leader? I don't want to be the sect leader. The sect leader is so tired. He has to deal with so many things every day. It's so annoying. The newly recruited vice sect leader doesn't know anything. He's just like a rash youth. He's simply hopeless. Even a bunch of great devils can become sect leader. Why should I be one? And you, the demon lord, why don't you? Suyin, come back quickly. Let's have a chat." But Suyin did not respond, and when he looked, he had already disappeared, leaving behind a hearty laughter. Seeing this, Octagon Aniseed had a helpless look on his face. He could only admit that he was unlucky and continued to watch the heaven-shaking battle while leaning on the rock. After leaving the true devil realm, Suyin headed towards the evil realm. He met up with Chun Tianxie and Chun Yun again and invited them to the Sky Martial continent for a chat. Suyin went to the Divine Wind realm to meet with the people of the Divine Eagle clan, and after he left, the Lord of the Divine Eagle clan also disappeared. Suyin went to the Wanhua realm and paid a visit to the Feng clan that had moved here, and reminisced about the past with Feng Ling Sheng, who had already become the patriarch of the Feng clan. Suyin then went to the ultimate martial sacred plane to search for the footprints left behind by his master, and thought back to the treasures his master had left for him. Those footprints that he had once walked on, he once again went back. Those who had once left traces in his heart, he once again went back to search for them. 7 days later, Suyin returned to the Sky Martial continent. Right in front of the Su family's original residence, a jade palace rose up, filled with cheers and laughter. All sorts of immortals, gods, and devils were gathered here. The divine dragons danced in the sky, and the flowers on the ground bloomed. 100 days later, on a desolate mountain somewhere in the Sky Martial continent, a small sect stood at the top of the mountain. There were only a few disciples in the sect. A disciple with a buzz cut and dressed in cloth was sweeping the fallen leaves on the stairs with a broom. He was yawning, and his eyes were hazy with sleep. Seeing that there was no one around, he threw the broom away and sat on a boulder to the side to take a nap. Birds flew past, and leaves fell slowly. It wasn't until light footsteps came from the foot of the mountain that the disciple woke up. "Who is it?" He hurriedly wiped his face and pretended to be in high spirits as he looked down the mountain. Very few people would come to this small mountain and small sect. At the foot of the mountain stood a man dressed in a black robe with a huge sword sheath hanging from his waist. Inside the sword sheath was a pitch-black longsword. The man raised his head slightly and looked at the plaque hanging above the mountain gate. The plaque was covered in dust, but there were 4 large words carved out of a sword. "Limitless Sword Sect." The corner of his mouth raised into a smile as he stepped forward, confident and at ease. End of the book. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.